The envelope arrived on a Tuesday morning, and Warren Nolan's assistant opened it with the same efficient precision she applied to everything else in his world of luxury real estate empires and high-stakes acquisitions. She found the letter inside, read 3 words, and immediately called security. Warren was in a meeting when Marcus, his head of building security, interrupted with an apology and a concerned expression that made Warren's jaw tighten. Marcus was former military, unflappable, which meant this was serious. "We need to talk privately, sir." Warren excused himself from the conference room where he'd been discussing a $500 million development deal in Manhattan. His office occupied the entire top floor of the Nolan Tower in Chicago, with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Lake Michigan. At 32, Warren had built his commercial real estate company from a single property flip into an international powerhouse. He'd made his first million at 24, his first $100 million by 28, and now his net worth exceeded $2 billion with projects spanning 3 continents. Marcus handed him the letter without preamble. The message was typed in block letters. "You took what was mine. Now I'll take everything from you, starting with your life." "There have been 2 more," Marcus said quietly. "One arrived at your penthouse this morning. Another was left with the doorman at your Lake Forest property, all saying essentially the same thing." Warren read the letter twice, his expression hardening. "Any idea who sent them? We're working on it. But Mr. Nolan, given your profile and the specific targeting, I strongly recommend hiring personal protection. Professional, full-time. A bodyguard." Warren set the letter down, his distaste evident. He'd grown up working construction with his father before putting himself through business school. He valued his independence, his ability to move through the world on his own terms. The idea of having someone shadow his every move felt suffocating. "The best personal protection available," Marcus said firmly. "I've already made some calls. There's one name that keeps coming up, Riley Thompson. She runs an elite security firm, but she still takes select clients personally. She's trained with international protection units, speaks 4 languages, and has never lost a client. Warren raised an eyebrow. "Don't let that influence your decision. She's the best in the business. Former Secret Service, worked private protection for foreign dignitaries, tech CEOs, even a Saudi prince. If someone can keep you alive, it's her." Warren looked at the letter again, thinking of his younger sister Emma, who worked in his company's legal department. Thinking of his parents, who still lived modestly despite his offers to buy them anything they wanted. If someone really was targeting him, he couldn't risk collateral damage to the people he loved. "Set up a meeting," he said finally. Riley Thompson arrived at Warren's office 2 days later, and she wasn't what he expected. She was wearing a tailored black suit that was professional without being masculine, her dark hair pulled back in a sleek ponytail. She was maybe 5'8", athletic build, with sharp green eyes that seemed to catalog everything in the room within seconds of entering. She moved with a fluid confidence that came from extensive training and real-world experience. "Mr. Nolan." She extended her hand, her grip firm. "Thank you for taking the time. Marcus spoke highly of you." Warren gestured to the chair across from his desk. "Though I'll be honest, I'm not convinced I need protection." Riley sat, her posture perfect, hands folded calmly in her lap. "You've received 3 threatening letters in 4 days, each delivered to different secure locations. That indicates someone with resources and determination. They know your movements, your properties, your routines. Whether you feel you need protection is irrelevant. The threat assessment says you do." Her directness caught him off guard. Most people in his orbit were careful with their words, deferential to his position and wealth. Riley spoke like someone used to making life or death decisions without apology. I have security, Warren said, feeling oddly defensive. Building security. They're excellent at securing buildings. I'm excellent at keeping people alive. There's a difference. She leaned forward slightly. Mr. Nolan, I've reviewed the threats in your profile. You're a high-value target with a public presence and predictable patterns. You lunch at the same 3 restaurants, attend the same gym at 6 in the morning, drive yourself to site visits. You make yourself vulnerable in dozens of ways every day. I like my life the way it is, Warren said flatly. Then let me help you keep it. Riley's expression softened almost imperceptibly. I'm not here to take over your life. I'm here to become a seamless part of it. You'll barely notice I'm there. Warren doubted that. He found himself studying her, this woman who spoke with such certainty. She was striking in an understated way, beautiful but clearly unconcerned with using it as currency. Everything about her communicated competence and control. What would this arrangement look like? He asked. I'd be with you 24/7 until the threat is neutralized. I'd coordinate with your existing security team, run advance work on all locations, manage your travel, and maintain a secure perimeter at all times. I'd live in your residence, travel with you, attend all meetings and events. My job is to be invisible until I need to be very visible. And if I want privacy, you'll have it. I'm a professional, Mr. Nolan. I'm not interested in your personal life unless it affects your security. Warren found himself agreeing before he'd fully processed the decision. Maybe it was her confidence, or Marcus's recommendation, or the nagging concern that whoever sent those letters might escalate. Whatever the reason, 3 days later Riley Thompson moved into the guest suite of his penthouse and became his constant shadow. The first week was an adjustment that tested Warren's patience. Riley arrived at 5:30 every morning, already dressed and alert, to check the penthouse before he woke. She accompanied him to the gym, maintaining a discreet distance but never letting him out of her sight. She rode with him to the office, sat in on meetings, vetted every restaurant and venue. She was professional, efficient, and absolutely inflexible about security protocols. I need to go to the construction site on West Madison, Warren told her one morning, grabbing his keys. I'll drive, Riley said, taking the keys from his hand without asking. The site hasn't been cleared yet. It's my site. I've been going there for months. And now someone's threatening your life, which changes the equation. Her tone was pleasant but immovable. I'll have a team sweep it first. We can go after lunch. I don't need permission to visit my own property, Warren said, his frustration breaking through. Riley met his eyes steadily. You hired me to keep you alive. Let me do my job. They went after lunch, once her team had cleared the location. Warren hated that she was right, hated the constraint, but he couldn't argue with her logic. Someone wanted to hurt him, and Riley was the barrier between threat and reality. Despite his initial resistance, Warren found himself noticing things about Riley. She was up before him every morning, already working, reviewing security reports, and coordinating with law enforcement on the investigation into the threats. She never complained about the long hours or the demanding schedule. She ate quickly and efficiently, treating meals as fuel rather than pleasure. She was always alert, always scanning, her attention divided between him and their surroundings. Don't you ever relax? He asked one evening. They were in his penthouse after a long day of back-to-back meetings. Riley was reviewing footage from his building's security cameras while Warren poured himself a scotch. Not while I'm working, she said without looking up. You're always working. That's the job. She finally glanced at him. You can relax, though. That's why I'm here. Warren sat across from her, studying her profile in the lamplight. What made you get into this? It's an unusual career choice. Riley hesitated, and he could see her weighing how much to share. My father was Secret Service. I grew up around protection work. Seemed like a natural fit. And the other 90% of that story, a hint of a smile crossed her face. Maybe someday. It became a pattern, these small conversations in the quiet moments. Riley maintained her professional distance, but Warren found himself wanting to know more about the woman behind the competence. She was careful never to reveal too much, but he learned she'd grown up in Virginia, that she'd played college soccer, that she read voraciously when she had time. She had a dry sense of humor that emerged occasionally, usually when he was being particularly stubborn about security measures. "You're enjoying this," Warren accused after she made him wait 15 minutes while her team cleared a restaurant where he was meeting potential investors. "I enjoy keeping you alive," Riley corrected, but there was amusement in her eyes. "Your impatience is just a bonus." The threats continued, escalating in specificity. Whoever was behind them knew details about Warren's life, his business dealings, even personal information that shouldn't have been accessible. The police investigation was ongoing but had yielded few leads. Riley tightened security further, to Warren's growing frustration. "I have a charity gala tomorrow night," he told her 3 weeks into their arrangement. "I'm expected to attend. I'm aware. I've been coordinating with the venue for 2 days." Riley looked up from her laptop. "You'll have 3 of my team positioned throughout the space, plus me at your side." "I can't have a bodyguard hovering over me all night. It looks weak." "It looks sensible given that someone is actively threatening your life." Riley's voice sharpened slightly. "And I won't be hovering. I'll be attending as your date." Warren blinked. "My date?" "It's the least conspicuous way to maintain close proximity in a social setting. I'll be armed, alert, and positioned to respond to any threat. But to everyone else, I'll just be your companion for the evening." The idea of Riley as his date stirred something he'd been trying to ignore for weeks now. She was beautiful, intelligent, and fascinating in ways that had nothing to do with her professional skills. But she'd made it abundantly clear that their relationship was purely professional, and Warren respected boundaries even as he found himself increasingly aware of her presence. The gala was at the Four Seasons, a glittering affair supporting children's literacy programs. Riley wore a floor-length emerald dress that matched her eyes, her hair down for once in soft waves. She was stunning, and Warren wasn't the only one who noticed. But her attention never wavered from her job, her eyes constantly scanning the room even as she smiled and made polite conversation with the other guests. "You're good at this," Warren murmured as they moved through the crowd. His hand was at the small of her back, a possessive gesture that felt natural despite their professional arrangement. "I've had practice," Riley said. She nodded graciously at a couple approaching them, but Warren felt the subtle shift in her posture, the heightened alertness. "Problem? Maybe." "The man at 3 o'clock, gray suit. He's been watching you since we arrived." Warren resisted the urge to look directly. "Could be a fan of my work. Could be. I'm not taking chances." Riley subtly angled herself to keep both Warren and the man in her sightline. "Let's move toward the bar." They mingled for another hour, and Warren found himself actually enjoying the evening despite the circumstances. Riley was charming when she chose to be, her intelligence and wit shining through the professional facade. She deflected personal questions with practiced ease, directing conversations back to Warren's work or the charity they were supporting. "You're quite the actress," he said as they danced later in the evening. Riley had insisted on the dance when she noticed the man in the gray suit moving closer. It gave her a reason to keep Warren in the center of the room, surrounded by people. "It's not acting," Riley said quietly, her hand in his, her other hand resting on his shoulder. I just know how to adapt to the situation. And if the situation were different, Warren asked, his voice low. If I weren't your client? Riley met his eyes, and for a moment he saw something flicker in her expression, something that wasn't entirely professional. Then it was gone, replaced by the careful neutrality he'd come to recognize. But you are my client, she said gently. And that's all that matters right now. The moment broke when Riley's earpiece crackled. She listened for a few seconds, her expression hardening. We need to leave, she said quietly but firmly. What's wrong? The man in gray tried to access the security office. He's being detained, but I want you out of here. Now. Riley moved him through the crowd with practiced efficiency, never seeming rushed but getting them to the exit in under 2 minutes. Her team materialized around them, creating a protective formation as they moved to the car. Warren's heart was pounding, the reality of the threat suddenly very real. In the car, Riley was on her phone, coordinating with police and her team. Her voice was calm, authoritative, every inch the professional. But when she finally ended the call and looked at Warren, he saw genuine concern in her eyes. Are you all right? She asked. I'm fine. Thanks to you. He reached out, his hand covering hers on the seat between them. Thank you, Riley. She looked at their joined hands and he thought she might pull away. Instead, her fingers curled slightly around his, a brief acknowledgement before she withdrew. Just doing my job, she said, but her voice was softer than usual. The man in the gray suit turned out to be a private investigator hired by a business rival, someone Warren had outbid on a major development deal. The rival claimed he was just gathering information, but the timing and behavior were suspicious enough to warrant serious police attention. It didn't solve the mystery of the threatening letters, but it confirmed that Riley's caution was justified. After that night, something shifted between them. Warren stopped fighting Riley's security measures as stubbornly, trusting her judgment. And Riley, in small ways, became more present as a person rather than just a protection officer. She joined him for coffee in the mornings, asked about his family, shared occasional stories from her own life. I almost didn't take this job, Riley admitted one rainy afternoon. They were in Warren's home office, him working on acquisition proposals, her reviewing security footage. Why not? Warren looked up from his laptop. You have a reputation for being difficult. She raised an eyebrow. Stubborn, independent, not great with authority. That's remarkably accurate, Warren said with a laugh. What changed your mind, Marcus? He said you were stubborn but not stupid and that you'd listen once you understood the stakes. Riley tilted her head. He was right. I listen to people I respect, Warren said, holding her gaze. And I respect you, Riley. Not just your skills, though those are impressive. I respect you. Color rose in Riley's cheeks, barely perceptible but there. Thank you. That means something. Warren's sister, Emma, visited the penthouse the following week, curious to meet the bodyguard who tamed her notoriously independent brother. Emma was 28, sharp-minded and sharper-tongued, with their father's dark hair and their mother's warm smile. So you're the famous Riley, Emma said, shaking Riley's hand with obvious amusement. Warren hasn't stopped talking about you. Emma, Warren warned, but his sister just grinned. What? It's true. Riley says this, Riley thinks that, Riley's approach to security protocols. Emma's impression of him was exaggerated but not entirely inaccurate. I haven't heard my brother talk about a woman this much since college. Riley maintained her composure, but Warren saw the hint of a smile. Your brother is an excellent client, very conscientious once he commits to something. That's diplomatic, Emma said. She turned to Warren. I like her. Don't screw this up. After Emma left, Warren found Riley on the terrace looking out at the Chicago skyline. The evening was cool, the city lights reflecting off Lake Michigan in the distance. "I apologize for my sister," Warren said, joining her at the railing. "She's always been enthusiastically intrusive. She cares about you, that's nice." Riley glanced at him. "You're lucky to have family like that. You're not close with yours. My father died 6 years ago. Line of duty." Riley's voice was matter-of-fact, but Warren heard the pain underneath. "My mother remarried and moved to Arizona. We talk occasionally, but we're not close." "I'm sorry," Warren said quietly. Riley shrugged slightly. "It's life. He knew the risks, so do I." Warren wanted to reach for her to offer comfort, but he sensed she wouldn't welcome it. Riley didn't want pity. She'd built her life around the same profession that took her father, turning grief into purpose. "Is that why you do this?" he asked. "To honor him?" "Maybe partly." Riley considered the question seriously. "But also because I'm good at it, because I believe in protecting people who matter, and because someone has to stand between the threats and the innocent." "I'm hardly innocent," Warren said with a half-smile. "No," Riley agreed, her own smile appearing. "But you're worth protecting anyway." The moment stretched between them, charged with everything they weren't saying. Warren was acutely aware of how close they were standing, of the way the wind caught Riley's hair, of the intelligence and strength in her eyes. "Riley," he began, not sure what he was going to say. Her phone buzzed, breaking the moment. She checked it, her expression shifting to alert professionalism. "The police have a lead on the letters," she said. "They want us to come to the station tomorrow morning." The lead turned into a breakthrough. Through forensic analysis and old-fashioned detective work, the police traced the letters to a former employee of Warren's company, someone who'd been fired 3 years earlier for embezzlement. The man, Gerald Hutchins, had served prison time and apparently blamed Warren for ruining his life. He'd been the one sending the letters, planning his revenge with disturbing detail. The police arrested Hutchins at his apartment, where they found evidence of surveillance, detailed plans of Warren's properties, and a timeline for an attack. It could have ended very badly if not for Riley's protection, and the investigation her involvement had accelerated. "We got him," Riley told Warren after the arrest. They were back at the penthouse, and for the first time in 6 weeks the threat was neutralized. "It's over." Warren should have felt relief, and he did, but he also felt something else, something like loss. Because if the threat was over, there was no reason for Riley to stay. "So what happens now?" he asked. Riley met his eyes, and he saw his own conflict reflected there. "Now I complete my contract, file my final reports, and move on to the next client. That's how this works." "That's how it has to work," Warren moved closer to her. "Because from where I'm standing, that's not what I want. Warren." Riley's voice was careful. "I'm your bodyguard. There are professional boundaries, ethical considerations." "You were my bodyguard," Warren corrected. "As of tomorrow, when the contract ends, you're just Riley and I'm just Warren. 2 people who have spent every day together for 6 weeks. 2 people who, unless I'm completely misreading this, have feelings that go beyond professional courtesy." Riley didn't deny it, which told Warren everything. "It's complicated," she said finally. "Why?" "Because you're worried about what people will think. Because it started during a professional relationship." Warren reached for her hand, relieved when she didn't pull away. "Riley, I've built a $2 billion company by knowing when something is worth the risk. You're worth any risk." "I don't know how to do this," Riley admitted, her voice quieter than he'd ever heard it. "I've spent my entire adult life keeping emotional distance, staying professional, not letting feelings interfere with judgment. You've thrown all of that into chaos." "Good," Warren said, pulling her closer. "Because you've done the same to me." I've spent 6 weeks fighting the fact that I'm falling for you, trying to maintain appropriate boundaries. I'm done fighting it. Warren, Riley started, but he cut her off. Tell me you don't feel this too, he said, his hand coming up to cup her face. Tell me I'm imagining it and I'll let it go. But if you feel even a fraction of what I feel, then we owe it to ourselves to see where this goes. Riley closed her eyes briefly, and when she opened them, all her careful guards were down. I do feel it, she said. I've been feeling it for weeks and it terrifies me. Warren smiled, his thumb tracing her cheekbone. You terrified, the woman who's trained with elite protection units and guarded princes. That's different. That's professional. This is, she struggled for words. This is real. Yeah, Warren agreed softly. It is. He kissed her then, gentle at first, giving her every chance to pull away. Instead, Riley kissed him back, her arms sliding around his neck as 6 weeks of tension and denial dissolved between them. It was a perfect kiss, full of promise and possibility, and when they finally broke apart, both were breathing hard. Okay, Riley said, her forehead resting against his. Okay, we can try this, but slowly. I need time to adjust to not being your bodyguard. We have all the time in the world, Warren assured her. The threat's gone, but that doesn't mean you have to be. Riley stayed that night, not in the guest suite but in Warren's room, and they talked until dawn, not about security protocols or threat assessments, but about themselves. Warren told her about growing up the son of a construction worker, about scraping together every dollar to buy his first property, about the pride in his father's eyes when the company went public. Riley shared stories about her father, about the pressure of living up to his legacy, about choosing a life that was lonely but purposeful. I haven't let anyone get close in years, Riley admitted as they lay together, her head on his chest. It seemed easier to stay focused on work. And now? Warren's fingers traced patterns on her shoulder. Now I'm terrified I'll mess this up, Riley said honestly. But I want to try. You make me want to try. They moved slowly as Riley had requested, though slowly for them still meant daily contact and nightly phone calls. Riley took on a new client, a tech CEO visiting Chicago for a conference, but she made time for Warren between assignments. They had dinner at his favorite steakhouse, where she revealed she'd been there 3 times during his protection detail, always arriving early to check the space. You were here when I had dinner with the investors from Tokyo, Warren realized. You were sitting at the bar, Riley nodded. Position gave me clear sightlines to your table and both exits. You never noticed me. I notice you now, Warren said, his hand covering hers across the table. I notice everything about you. Their relationship deepened over the following months. Riley gradually opened up, letting Warren see beyond the professional exterior to the woman underneath. She was funny, with a wry sense of humor that caught him off guard. She was thoughtful, remembering small details about his preferences and his family. She was passionate about her work, but also about literature, hiking, and teaching self-defense classes to women at a local community center. Warren introduced her to Emma officially as his girlfriend, not his former bodyguard. Emma approved wholeheartedly, pulling Riley aside to threaten dire consequences if she broke Warren's heart. She's protective, Warren said later, amused and touched by his sister's fierce loyalty. She should be, Riley said. Families should protect each other. Warren brought Riley home to meet his parents on a weekend trip to his hometown of Rockford. His father, William, still had the broad shoulders and calloused hands of his construction days, though he'd retired the year before. His mother, Margaret, was warm and immediately welcoming, embracing Riley like a daughter. So you're the one who kept our boy safe, William said, shaking Riley's hand with obvious respect. I'm the one who tried to keep him from being stubborn about it, Riley said with a smile, and William laughed. Then you know my son pretty well. The weekend was easy, comfortable, and Warren watched Riley relax in a way he'd never seen. She helped his mother in the kitchen, discussed construction techniques with his father, and fit seamlessly into his family. On the drive back to Chicago, Warren realized he was in love with her, completely and irreversibly. "I could get used to this," Riley said, her hand in his as he drove. "Family dinners, normal weekends, it's nice." "It could be your normal," Warren said carefully, "if you wanted it to be." Riley looked at him, understanding the implication. "Warren, we've only been together 4 months, I know, and I'm not proposing, not yet." He squeezed her hand. "But I'm also not dating casually here, Riley. I'm in this all the way. I love you." The words hung in the car, vulnerable and true. Riley was quiet for a long moment, and Warren's heart pounded as he waited for her response. "I love you too," she said finally, her voice thick with emotion. "I didn't think I could, didn't think I should, but I do. I love you, Warren." They pulled over at the next rest stop, and Warren kissed her like his life depended on it, both of them laughing and crying and holding each other like they'd never let go. Riley moved into the penthouse 6 months into their relationship, transforming the guest suite into an office where she ran her security firm. She was selective about clients now, taking only cases that truly interested her and delegating more to her team. Warren loved having her there, loved the domesticity of morning coffee together and evenings debriefing their days. They balanced each other, her caution tempering his boldness, his optimism softening her vigilance. "I need to tell you something," Riley said one evening as they cooked dinner together. She was chopping vegetables while Warren handled the pasta, a routine they'd developed over months of shared meals. "Should I be worried?" Warren glanced at her, reading tension in her shoulders. "Maybe." "Probably not." Riley set down the knife, turning to face him. "I got offered a contract, 6 months in London, protection detail for a diplomat's family. It's a prestigious job, the kind that would significantly raise my firm's profile." Warren's stomach dropped, but he kept his voice steady. "That's a great opportunity." "It is," Riley agreed. "It's also 6 months away from you, away from us, and I'm not sure that's a trade I want to make anymore." "You're turning it down?" Warren asked carefully. "I'm thinking about it, but I wanted to talk to you first." Riley moved closer, her hands on his chest. "This is new for me, putting a relationship before my career. I need to know where we stand, where you think this is going." Warren turned off the stove, giving her his full attention. "I think this is going toward forever if you want that too. I think I want to marry you, build a life with you, maybe have kids someday if you want them. I think 6 months apart would be terrible, but I'd support you if that's what you need for your career." Riley's eyes were bright, emotional in a way she rarely allowed herself. "You want to marry me?" "Yes," Warren said simply. "Not today, not necessarily tomorrow, but yes, absolutely yes." "Then I'm turning down London," Riley decided, "because I want that too, all of it, with you." Warren proposed 3 months later, on the anniversary of the day they'd met. He took her back to his office, to the place where Riley had walked in with her confident stride and changed his life. He'd had the space prepared, candles and roses and the city lights twinkling beyond the windows. "This is where it started," Warren said, taking her hands. "You walked in here and turned my entire world upside down. You kept me safe when I was too stubborn to protect myself. You challenged me, frustrated me, and made me fall completely in love with you." He dropped to one knee, pulling out the ring he'd spent weeks selecting, a platinum band with an emerald the color of her eyes surrounded by diamonds. "Riley Thompson, will you marry me?" Riley was crying, nodding before she could speak. "Yes, yes, absolutely yes." The ring fit perfectly, and Warren stood to kiss his fiancée, his partner, his love. Riley kissed him back with all the passion she usually kept carefully controlled, and Warren knew he was the luckiest man alive. They were married 8 months later in a ceremony that blended both their worlds. Riley's former Secret Service colleagues attended alongside Warren's business associates. Emma served as Riley's maid of honor, having become as close to Riley as any sister. Warren's father walked Riley down the aisle since her own father couldn't be there, a gesture that made her cry before the ceremony even began. "He would have loved you," William told Riley as they prepared to walk, "and he would have been so proud of the woman you've become." The ceremony was in a historic mansion overlooking the lake, intimate and elegant. Warren's breath caught when he saw Riley in her wedding dress, classic and beautiful, her hair down the way he loved. She looked at him like he was her entire world, and Warren knew the feeling was mutual. "I never thought I'd have this," Riley admitted during their first dance as husband and wife. "A partner, a family, someone who sees all of me and stays anyway." "I'm never leaving," Warren promised. "You're stuck with me." "Good," Riley said, kissing him as their guests cheered. They honeymooned in Italy. 2 weeks of food and wine and exploring ancient cities. Riley finally completely relaxed, her professional vigilance giving way to pure enjoyment. They wandered through Rome, sailed along the Amalfi Coast, and spent lazy mornings in bed at their villa in Tuscany. "We should just stay here," Riley suggested on their last morning, curled against Warren's side as sunrise painted their room in gold. "Tempting," Warren agreed, kissing her temple. "But we have a life to get back to. A good life." Back in Chicago, they settled into married life with surprising ease. Riley continued running her security firm, building it into one of the most respected in the industry. Warren expanded his real estate empire while making time for what mattered most, his wife and family. They were partners in every sense, supporting each other's ambitions while building something meaningful together. Emma gave birth to a daughter a year after the wedding, making Warren an uncle and Riley an aunt. They spoiled their niece shamelessly, and Warren saw the softness in Riley's eyes whenever she held the baby. "You want this?" he asked one evening after babysitting. "Kids of our own." Riley was quiet, thoughtful. "I never let myself think about it before," she admitted. "My career always came first. But yes, I think I do. With you, I want it all." Their son was born 2 years after they married, a healthy baby boy with Warren's dark hair and Riley's green eyes. They named him William Riley Nolan, honoring both their fathers. Warren had never known love like this, holding his son while Riley recovered from delivery, both of them exhausted and overwhelmed and completely happy. "We made a person," Riley said in wonder, watching Warren hold William. "An actual human being." "We're pretty impressive," Warren agreed, carefully sitting beside her on the hospital bed so she could see their son up close. "Though you did most of the work." "You did your part 9 months ago," Riley teased, and Warren laughed. Parenthood was harder than either expected, especially balancing it with their demanding careers. But they figured it out together, hiring help when needed but making sure to be present for the important moments. Riley scaled back her personal protection work, focusing more on running the business side of her firm. Warren promoted trusted lieutenants in his company, giving himself flexibility to be home for bath times and bedtime stories. Their daughter was born 18 months later, a surprise pregnancy that delighted them both. Sarah Riley Nolan was a perfect baby, easier than her brother had been, with her mother's determination visible from day one. "We're outnumbered now," Warren said, holding Sarah while William played nearby and Riley rested on the couch. "We're exactly right," Riley corrected, her hand finding his. This is everything I never knew I wanted. They moved to a larger house in Lincoln Park when the kids were toddlers. A historic mansion with space for their growing family and room for Riley's parents to visit. An offer Warren's parents took advantage of frequently. The house filled with laughter and chaos, toys and family dinners, and more love than Warren had imagined possible. "Remember when you hired me?" Riley asked one evening. They were in their home office, working late after the kids were in bed. "When you were so opposed to having a bodyguard." "Best hire I ever made," Warren said, pulling her into his lap. "Though I should probably disclose that I fell in love with you about 3 weeks in." 3 weeks, Riley raised an eyebrow. "It took me at least 4. "Liar," Warren accused affectionately. "You were halfway in love with me by the end of week 2. I saw it that night at the gala." "Maybe," Riley admitted, kissing him softly. "But admitting it is different. I fought it for weeks." "I know, you were stubborn about boundaries." "Someone had to be," Riley pointed out. "You certainly weren't. You were the worst client I ever had when it came to respecting professional distance." "And here we are anyway," Warren said, holding her close. "Married, 2 kids, completely happy. Maybe I was right to push those boundaries." "Maybe you were," Riley agreed. "Or maybe we were just meant to find each other, no matter how many rules I tried to maintain." On their 5th wedding anniversary, they returned to Warren's office for dinner, just the 2 of them. He'd arranged for his parents to watch the kids, and they dressed up like they had for that first gala. Riley wore green again, and Warren couldn't stop looking at her. 5 years, Riley mused, champagne in hand as they looked out at the city. "Sometimes it feels like yesterday, sometimes like forever." "Both," Warren said. "It's been fast and perfect, and I want 50 more years just like it." "Just 50, Riley teased. "Fine, 100, Warren amended, pulling her close. "However long we get, as long as it's together." Riley kissed him, deep and lingering, all the love and passion of their years together evident in that connection. "Forever then," she said against his lips. "I'll take forever with you." Their 10th anniversary found them back at the lake, their kids playing in the sand while they watched from beach chairs. William was 8 now, already showing signs of his father's business mind and his mother's analytical skills. Sarah was 6, fearless and bright, with a smile that melted Warren's heart every time. "You ever miss it?" Warren asked Riley. "The adrenaline of protection work, the travel, the intensity." Riley considered the question seriously, watching their children. "Sometimes," she admitted. "But not enough to trade this. I found something better than adrenaline. I found purpose, family, love. You gave me that." "We gave each other that," Warren corrected. "You saved my life in more ways than one, Riley. Not just from whoever was threatening me, but from a life that was all work and no connection. You taught me what matters." "You taught me too," Riley said softly. "You taught me it's okay to want more, to build a life beyond the job, to let someone in completely." They kissed while their kids made faces and giggled, the perfect embodiment of the life they'd built together. A life that started with a threat and a bodyguard but became so much more. Warren sometimes thought about that day. Marcus had handed him the threatening letter, the catalyst that brought Riley into his world. He'd been annoyed at first, resistant to the idea of constant protection. Now he couldn't imagine his life without the woman who'd been hired to keep him safe. Riley had done her job perfectly, protecting him from external threats. But she'd also broken down his walls, challenged his isolation, and shown him what real partnership looked like. She'd been the best in the business at keeping people alive, and she'd saved Warren in every way that mattered. And Warren, who'd been the worst at respecting boundaries, had loved her past every wall she'd built. He'd seen the woman behind the professional, the heart beneath the armor, and he'd known she was worth any risk, any challenge, any complication. They built their forever on that foundation. Two people who never should have fallen in love but couldn't help themselves. A billionaire and his bodyguard, brought together by threats and kept together by choice. They chose each other every day, through busy careers and late nights, through diaper changes and business deals, through every challenge life presented. "Best decision I ever made," Warren told Riley years later, on the day William graduated from college with Sarah not far behind. "Hiring you." "Best decision I ever made," Riley countered, her hand in his as their adult children celebrated with friends and family. "Taking the job, and then breaking all my rules by falling for you." "No regrets?" Warren asked, though he knew the answer. "Not a single one," Riley assured him, kissing her husband of over 20 years. "You were worth every broken boundary, every crossed line. You were worth everything." They'd built an empire together, not just Warren's business empire, but an empire of love and family and partnership. They'd raised children who were confident and kind, who knew they were loved beyond measure. They'd maintained successful careers while prioritizing what mattered most, each other and their family. Their grandchildren came later, William's twins and Sarah's son, and Warren and Riley spoiled them with the wisdom of people who'd learned what truly mattered. They traveled extensively once the kids were grown, revisiting Italy and exploring places they'd always dreamed of seeing. But they always came home to Chicago, to the city where they'd met, to the life they'd built together. "Thank you," Warren told Riley on their 30th anniversary, holding her close as they danced in the same mansion where they'd married. Their children and grandchildren celebrated around them, but for that moment it was just the two of them. "For what?" Riley asked, though her eyes were suspiciously bright. "For everything. For keeping me safe when I needed it, for loving me when I didn't know I needed that even more. For building this life with me, for our children, for every single day we've had together." "Thank you," Riley said, her voice thick with emotion. "For being stubborn enough to fall in love with me despite every professional boundary I tried to maintain. For seeing past the bodyguard to the woman. For giving me a family and a home and a love I never thought I could have." They kissed as their family applauded, a perfect moment in a life full of them. The billionaire and the bodyguard, brought together by fate and threats, kept together by love and choice and determination. Riley had been the best in the business, and she'd kept Warren safe from every threat. But the greatest thing she'd done was let him past her defenses, let him love her, let them build something extraordinary together. And Warren, who'd been terrible at boundaries and respecting limits, had loved her relentlessly until she couldn't help but love him back. He'd pushed and pursued and proven that some rules were meant to be broken, especially when it came to matters of the heart. Their love story wasn't conventional, but it was perfect for them. It was real and hard-won and absolutely worth every complication. They'd fought for it, built it day by day, and created something that would last long after they were gone. In the end, Riley kept Warren safe from every threat except one, the biggest threat of all. She'd broken through his careful independence and made him vulnerable in the best possible way, vulnerable to love and connection and family. And Warren had done the same for her, breaking down her professional walls and showing her a life beyond duty and service. They saved each other in every way that mattered, and built a forever that started with a threatening letter but became the greatest love story either had ever known. The best in business and the worst at boundaries, perfectly matched and completely in love, for all the years they were blessed to share. Their story was proof that sometimes the best things in life come from the most unexpected places, that love can bloom even in the most professional circumstances, and that the right person is always worth breaking the rules for. Warren and Riley found their forever in each other, and they never looked back, never regretted, never doubted that they were exactly where they were meant to be, together.